Hi scientists, Miss Frizzle here. Today we're going to be reading The Magic School Bus and A Pickle, a story about microbes. Let's begin. It's not hard to find a mystery when you have Miss Frizzle for a teacher. Take what happened when we returned to school after a vacation. The first thing Keisha did was run to the class garden to check on her cucumber. But Keisha was in for a terrible surprise. Her cucumber was gone. Someone had replaced it with a pickle in a jar. But who? Keisha has a big dilemma. Carlos! Keisha loved her cucumber. She'd grown it from a seed. It was huge, a champion, and now it was gone. At least whoever took it left you with a tasty-looking pickle, Wanda told Keisha. Wanda picked a rotten carrot. Look at my carrot. Not even a starving rabbit would eat it now. Arnold stared at a moldy tomato rotting on the vine. My tomato doesn't even look like a tomato anymore, he moaned. It would have been better off stolen. How could things that were so good go so bad over one vacation? Just then, Miss Frizzle walked into the classroom. She was munching on a crunchy, delicious pickle. Good morning, class, she greeted us between crunches. Keisha interrupted Miss Frizzle's snack. Miss Frizzle, my cucumber was stolen while we were on vacation. We must have had a thief in here, she said. Miss Frizzle lifted up the pickle jar that stood where Keisha's cucumber had once grew. Is this what you're looking for, Keisha? She asked innocently. Keisha was confused. This isn't my cucumber, she told her teacher. It's a pickle. Something smells funny in here. Whoa, there's a ton of pickles in here. You caught me, Ralphie. I have a powerful passion for pickles. Keisha looked Miss Frizzle straight in the eye. All I know is that the door to this classroom was locked during vacation, and you had the key. Keisha, Phoebe exclaimed. Are you suggesting that Miss Frizzle, our beloved teacher? Well, she could have done something with my cucumber, Keisha interrupted. You're right, Keisha. I admit it. Miss Frizzle! I admit that, thanks to me, your cucumber is gone, Miss Frizzle told Keisha. But it isn't missing. How can something be gone that's not missing, she asked. Miss Frizzle held up the pickle jar. You see, Keisha, this pickle used to be your cucumber. Isn't that amazing? Keisha shook her head angrily. Not amazing and not possible, she declared. That does not look or smell like my cucumber, and I am sure it does not taste like my cucumber. Don't bite that pickle. You're destroying the evidence. What evidence? This isn't real. This isn't a trial, is it? Before long, our classroom looked like a courtroom. Keisha was the prosecutor. Arnold was defending Miss Frizzle. The Honorable Liz Ard, better known as just Liz, was the judge. Keisha stood to make her opening statement. I intend to prove that Miss Frizzle not only took my prize-winning cucumber, but also that she did not turn it into a pickle. Much to our surprise, Miss Frizzle applauded Keisha's statement. Oh, bravo, Keisha, she cheered. I intend to prove the same thing. It's so nice when everyone's on the same side. But Keisha did not feel like they were on the same side. She held up a pickle and a small cucumber. Kids of the jury, this is a pickle, and this is a cucumber. Not as big as my cucumber, but still a cucumber. Miss Frizzle is asking us to believe that these two are the same thing. But I ask you, do these look the same to you? I don't think so. Miss Frizzle doesn't seem nervous. Nope, she's cool as a cucumber. Then it was Arnold's turn to speak. We will prove that no crime was committed, and Miss Frizzle is innocent of all charges, Arnold said. Then he turned nervously to Miss Frizzle. Right? He whispered. Much to Arnold's surprise, Miss Frizzle shook her head. As I have already said, I did take Keisha's cucumber. However, I did not turn it into a pickle. Miss Frizzle paused and looked at the jury. But I know who did, she exclaimed. You do? Miss Frizzle leaned forward and spoke softly. They were members of a gang, a small-time gang with big ideas, a tiny, troublesome crowd of two-bit thieves known as the Mike Robe Gang. And even though they hang around a lot of different places, they're extremely hard to find because they are invisible. An invisible gang? Oh no, this was more dangerous than we thought. Invisible? I think Miss Frizzle's losing it. Arnold was getting nervous. His client did sound as though she were losing it. Tell them, Miss Frizzle, Arnold pleaded. Tell them the gang is invisible because they wear disguises, right? Miss Frizzle shook her head. Oh no, she said. They're invisible because they are too small to be seen. Keisha leaped to her feet. How can Miss Frizzle expect us to believe that my cucumber was turned into a pickle by a gang of thieves we can't see? She demanded. Keisha has a point, Dorothy Ann agreed. How can you prove that? Arnold was stumped. He wasn't that good a lawyer. Luckily, Miss Frizzle had an idea. She whispered something in Arnold's ear. Before Arnold could stop himself, the words had left his mouth. We're taking the court on a field trip. Oh, did I say that? Did Arnold say that? We all went outside, piled onto the bus, and buckled our seatbelts. Liz stayed behind in the court classroom. Bus, do your stuff, Miss Frizzle commanded. Suddenly, the bus turned into a flying blimp and began to shrink. We began to shrink too. None of us were really surprised. Things like that tend to happen when Miss Frizzle's at the wheel. We flew right back into the classroom. Our bus never flew at my old school. I wish I were at your old school. The bus landed near a flower pot. There, Arnold spotted the perfect piece of evidence to prove his case. A white ball growing on one of the petals. I'll bet Keisha's never seen one of these before, he said to Miss Frizzle. Not likely, Arnold. That's much too tiny. It's a kind of yeast called an ascomycete, Miss Frizzle exclaimed. It grows just about everywhere. Arnold turned to address the jury. If it's so tiny you can only see it when you're tiny, that makes it an invisible member of the Mike Robe Gang, just like Miss Frizzle said. I rest my case. We were all pretty impressed. All except Keisha, that is. Not so fast, Arnold. Just because there are tiny little creatures here doesn't mean they are everywhere, Keisha argued. And it doesn't mean they turned my cucumber into a pickle. Just to prove her point, Keisha asked Miss Frizzle to land the bus on Liz to see if any of the Mike Robe Gang were hanging on her scales. The bus took off and landed on Liz's nose. The Mike Robe Gang was there in full force. We could see tiny spiral-shaped creatures crawling all along Liz's scaly skin. Suddenly, Liz swatted at her nose and sent the bus sailing through the air. We landed with a splash. Where are we now? I hope we're not back in the water cycle. We're in the hamster's water bowl. All around us were fat, blob-like creatures swallowing creatures that looked like hairy hot dogs. The fat, juicy ones are amoebas, Miss Frizzle told us. The ones that look like hairy hot dogs are paramecia. And they are all members of the Mike Robe Gang. Gosh, I never knew things like these existed, Keisha admitted. But now you do, Arnold announced. And not only that, they're everywhere. Case closed. Hey, amoeba, try a little mustard on that paramecium. Objection, Keisha shouted. These gang members may be swimming in the water, but I don't see them changing the water into anything. Arnold's face turned red. Keisha had him there. Then, out of the corner of his eye, Arnold spotted his rotting tomato. Something was definitely changing there. You want change? I'll show you change, he promised. To my tomato, Miss Frizzle, and hurry! With the flick of a switch, the bus flew off. We escaped just before the hamster took a sip. Of us! I sense change is in the air. We landed right on Arnold's gushy tomato. Red juice splashed all over the bus. The smell was horrible. I told you something was going on, Arnold told Keisha proudly. But Keisha was not convinced. Smelly and gushy are not enough. I don't see anything here to change my mind but a rotten tomato. Maybe we, need to shrink some more, Arnold spluttered nervously. So Miss Frizzle pushed a button and we shrunk down until we were very, very small. We also sunk further down into the rotting tomato. What's your objection now, Arnold? I object to being the world's smallest defense attorney. The pulpy center of the tomato was even squishier and smellier than the surface. Something with tall, thin stalks and round tops grew all around us. Every few seconds, the tops of the stalks would erupt, shooting bean-shaped creatures out into the tomato. The bean-shaped creatures all had long, thin arms. Miss Frizzle said all these creatures were called funguses, and they were members of the Mike Robe Gang. Miss Frizzle thought it was time for us to come face to face with fungus. Okay, class, Miss Frizzle cheered. It's time to get messy. Into your anti-fungus suits, everyone. Then she opened the door of the bus. I knew I should have stayed home today. The funguses were tough gang members. We watched nervously as they attacked Arnold's tomato. They're just doing what funguses do, Miss Frizzle assured us. Keisha was amazed. You mean they're supposed to destroy the tomato? She exclaimed. Carlos laughed. Hey, even a fungus needs to eat, he joked. What if they eat us next? Then Miss Frizzle will need a new defense attorney. So now we knew the Mike Robe Gang members really were everywhere, and they could make things change. We also found out you couldn't really see them unless you used a really powerful microscope. Or you had a teacher who could shrink you until you were incredibly small. But, believe it or not, it was not enough proof for Keisha. You still haven't proven that they turned my cucumber into a pickle, she said. Before Miss Frizzle could reply, the tomato started to bubble, ooze, and shake. We were caught right in the middle of a tomato quake. Help, help, help! The tomato exploded. We were being washed away in a sea of smelly, fungus-filled tomato juice. The tomato river flowed through the class garden and carried us over the edge of the bookshelf. We landed inside a glass jar. We were trapped there, forced to swim in the yellow-green liquid. We were swimming in pickle brine. This is it, Keisha. This is where it all happened. We're in Miss Frizzle's pickle jar. We weren't the only newcomers to the pickle jar. Some of the tomato funguses had washed in also. So the fungus was still among us. And boy, were those funguses hungry. They headed right over toward the pickle. It was dinner time. First, the funguses ate the tomato. Now they're trying to eat the pickle, Keisha exclaimed. We were amazed. Those Mike Robe Gang members were really tough. You mean we're actually at the scene of the crime? But the tomato funguses never reached the pickle. They were stopped by some sausage-shaped creatures that were already sucking at the pickle. The sausage-shaped creatures squirted out pickle juice as they ate the pickle. The pickle juice killed the funguses. Whenever a fungus was hit by pickle juice, it shriveled up and floated away. Those sausage-shaped things are a kind of bacteria, Ms. Frizzle told us. They're also members of the Mike Robe Gang. Wipeout! Those funguses are history. Look at those pickle protectors work. The pickle bacteria were good shots. Before long, there weren't many tomato funguses left alive. Hooray! But our joy was short-lived. Suddenly, we were rocked by a large splash. Liz had accidentally knocked a cucumber into the jar. The cucumber slid past us and landed at the bottom of the jar. The pickle bacteria immediately latched onto the cucumber and began sucking at its skin. Cucumber alert! What's happening? Keisha asked with alarm. I thought the pickle bacteria were the good guys. The bacteria are the good guys, Phoebe told her. If it weren't for the pickle bacteria destroying the funguses, the same rotten thing that happened to the tomato would happen to this cucumber. They're not destroying the cucumber, they're saving it. Without bacteria, this cucumber would be in a real pickle. Instead, it's becoming a pickle. The funguses rot things by eating them, Wanda added, and the pickle bacteria stop things from rotting by getting rid of the funguses. There's only one problem, Ralphie interrupted. The bacteria are turning the cucumber into a pickle. Miss Frizzle smiled. Not a problem, Ralphie, she insisted. That's preservation. A pickle lasts a lot longer than a cucumber. All these tiny things that we've seen may be small, but they make big changes, and they are all called microbes. Did you say microbes? Arnold now had all the evidence he needed. Kids of the jury, you've seen that all around us in an invisible world filled with creatures like amoebas, paramecia, funguses, and bacteria, he began. And they are all called microbes. Obviously, the gang is really called the Mike Robe Gang, not the Mike Robe Gang. But whatever you call them, microbes make big changes, like turning a cucumber into a pickle. Now even Keisha had to admit that the pickle really was her cucumber. Miss Frizzle was found innocent of all charges. She hadn't stolen Keisha's cucumber. She'd saved it by putting it in the pickle brine. Miss Frizzle was a true heroine. We piled back on the bus. With the flick of a switch, we grew back to our regular sizes and prepared to spend another typical day in Miss Frizzle's class. Although a day in Miss Frizzle's class is never typical. Case closed. The end.